I think it's very important to have a very careful process that's explained at the beginning that everybody buys into. It's a real possibility. It isn't all that expensive compared to everything else that a company is doing, and it's something that you can create your brand personality in the digital environment. People have realized when getting into the digital era, with Google's interest in fonts and Google Fonts, suddenly there are web fonts on 90% of the big websites, maybe 95% of the big websites. 20 years ago, people used the standard fonts, originally Times Roman, but then Georgia and Verdana or Arial for everything. Now, what that also does is create the most popular Google fonts are now almost as ubiquitous as Arial in Georgia used to be. And so somebody who wants to communicate with some kind of definition, separation from the rest, distinction, personality, has to find another font. You could either pick a different font or you can make one. It's famous being Times New Roman, which most people don't realize was made for the Times of London in 1930. It turns out that if you make a typeface like Times New Roman, then other people like it too for other reasons, but it's still a very, very practical typeface. And I think that's part of it. So you get good type that way. The other thing is that in this world, so much communication involves text. In the old days, it was about printing, but now it's mostly about your phone, your electronic device, and the PC. And there's so much type, there's so much copy, so many words to read that it's very hard for an individual company or a brand to stand out if they have their own typeface and people get familiar with it. So there's a real important brand business proposition with custom type. And that's why we're seeing more and more of it today. We go to big companies and ask, one of the first questions is, what is your type strategy? And they all look at us, many of them look at us like, what are you talking about? And you say, well, you have a social media strategy, you have a video strategy. What's your, you have all this different media strategies in the press, in the web. What is your type strategy? Some of the most progressive companies do. They have a plan. Apple Computer, for example, has been interested in type from the beginning. And they've invented type. They've invented type technology. And they make a lot of custom fonts themselves. That's the kind of company is widely admired for its design, underpinnings. It's a design-based company. And I think that many companies want to be that now. How do you make a custom font? Yeah, I think it's very important to have a very careful process that's explained at the beginning that everybody buys into. They might have some examples of typefaces that they like, but they can say it's between this and this, or it's this, but could you make it more formal, or you could make it more casual? And that's sort of the key. At the beginning, you need to define what we call the design space. You need to define what it's going to be used for, and you need to define who the end users, who the readers, who are the customers who are going to look at this font. What's that market look like? And you have to agree on those things. And then you can do the second step is to do some exploratory designs. And it may be that you actually, early days, start testing words with real people. But the main thing is to agree amongst yourselves which way you're going. And what are the various characteristics? Is it, do you want it super legible, readable at small sizes? All of those kinds of things have to be built into your brief. And then the design can flesh out, the first stage can flesh out what the options are. And then it's very important then to say, we're going in this direction. This is going to be the alpha version, and then you can build out a real font. There have to be places where you can make revisions. There are a whole series of milestones So there's design approval, and then you do the beta font, and there's a set of approvals and tests. There's lots of work that gets done, but if you agree in the beginning which is the direction you want, and then you solve that, you actually have approval in an early stage of the font, then anything can be done in a relatively reasonable order and not too much money.